right, good morning. I think I'm live, but I'm going to just be opening up something over here to double check. What if you were smaller so I could see the chat better, huh? Howdy, everybody. We are going to be working on... excellent, all right. Looks like... Excellent, the stream has caught up with me, so we have a 3-minute delay, it looks like. So if you say something and I don't respond to it, I am not ignoring you. It just has not come up for me yet. And we're going to be jumping back into... starting now, our dialect bot. Our dialect bot project. Sorry, I'm a little distracted this morning. Last week I sort of laid out what the project is going to be around. I'm not centered in the frame. Yeah, there we go. Last week we laid out what the project's going to be like. So basically I want to build eventually a voice skill, but before we get to there, a very limited virtual assistant where you can answer a series of questions about what words you would use in certain situations or the ways that you say things. And once you're done with that, it will respond to you with best guess about what your dialect area is. YouTube Retro says, how are you today? I can see and hear you. Fantastic. I'm doing pretty good. And I'll sound better if I look at the mic. Excuse me. Oh, and I don't need these. So that's the general idea for the bot. It's going to be very similar to the New York Times Dialect Quiz, which we talked about last week. And you can go back and watch that video if you're curious and you want to find out more. And this will be very limited. We'll be focusing on just the dialects of the United States, at least to begin with, because that's what I'm most familiar with, and that's what I was gonna say that's what I have data about, but that's the bad news part of it. So I mentioned on Twitter I have some good news and bad news about the project. The bad news is that going along my to-do list, I don't have an X option, I couldn't find the original R implementation. I know I've interacted with a Shiny app for this at some point in the past, but I'm not entirely sure when that was, and it could have been like up to almost 10 years ago, 7-8 years ago. So I did some digging and could not find it, so couldn't find. And Josh Katz is now a visualization designer, I guess, data visualizer for the New York Times full-time. So if you just look for like visualizations, Josh Katz, there's a lot of them. This I didn't get around to, but I am reading. My book's not in this room. Reading Kathy Earle's book on voice design. So this I'm sort of kicking down the road a bit because, again, first we want to build the business logic that will allow the turn selection and stuff, and then once we're done with that, then we'll start looking at voice. But that's a ways down the road. So I'm going to bump a bunch of the voice stuff down until we actually have a functioning text interface, and then the frustrating thing is that I was like, during the last term, I was like, oh, hey, yeah, it'll be easy. I'll just find all the responses for the dialect quiz, and I can, do those as conversations. So 2 things here. One, I don't think this is the best way to do this anymore. So my original idea that I was kicking around was that I'd take this quiz and treat it as a set of conversations, and then just sort of wholesale put that into the training data, and then let Rasa figure it out from a machine learning standpoint. And the more I thought about it, and the more I was reading about different sort of ways of doing things in Rasa, the more I was like, oh wait, that's an awful way to do it. What am I doing? So 1, I don't think it's the best way to do it. 2, I don't have the data. So I spent a lot of time last week and this week trying to find this data. It's not publicly available at the moment. And I have actually Vox, I think I said it was Vo last week. It's Vox, rhymes with Fox. Just got back to me, so I need to check that email. But it is not, as far as I can tell, available online pretty much anywhere. So the data, what I mean here is not just the survey, like the survey questions and responses, because that's fine. I could get that pretty straightforwardly. The data here is how those responses relate to geographic area. And I believe the original Harvard Dialect Quiz was based on zip code, which is the United States postal code. So it's what post office delivers your mail, basically. And that I don't have. And is not publicly available as far as I can tell, and I might be able to get my hands on it, but it's going to take some doing. So that is a little bit of a blocker, but the good news is that it's not a blocker right away, because that's just going to be part of the sort of machine learning component. So the good news is that I have figured out what I want the general architecture of the project to be. Fabio says hi. YouTube Retro says, do you plan to show how to deploy the bot on an ordinary website? Yeah, I'll probably, as an interim before I get the Alexa skill or Google also skill, I guess, task? I don't know what the Google Voice Assistant ones are called. I'll probably have a bit where it's just sort of like hosted and anyone can come and do it and interact with it via text, and that'll also be helpful for me because it will give me more sort of training data to go back through and annotate. So yeah, that'll definitely be a step in this process. Not today, we're not doing that. And then Hung says, is this live or rebroadcasted? This is live. Hello. A little bit of coffee. So that's the downside. I got through basically 0 of my to-dos. But what I did figure out is the general way that I'm going to have this done work inside Rasa. So last week we talked a little bit about different implementation areas, and the implementation that we chose is to ask all of the questions, and the original quiz, I believe, had 25 questions, and then pick the zip code with the highest probability. I do not want to restart Windows right now. And after doing some more research this week and chatting with folks, I think the best way to do this is to use a form. So if I planned ahead, I would have a Rasa form. I'd have that pulled up already. So forms are a way of, and I just searched for Rasa forms, and this is the documentation. So forms are a way to collect a few pieces of information from a user in order to do something. So the canonical examples are like, if you want to book a restaurant or search a database, so maybe for the database you need to know, maybe you want to know how many orders went out last Monday, so you need to know that it's orders that the person wants to know about, and then last Monday as the date, so those are the pieces of information that you need in order to run the query and return the data. Basically, that's the idea. And we're going to do kind of a big form is my plan. And what we'll do is we will have a slot for each of the dialect questions. So the questions are like, what do you call, a sweet, fizzy, carbonated beverage? Fizzy and carbonated are synonyms. What do you call a sweet carbonated beverage? So some people might say soda, some people might say pop, some people might say Coke, and which of those that you say or are most likely to say has some relation to your dialect area. So that we could have that as a slot called, I want to be agnostic about which of those terms to use, carbonated beverage, the beverage slot. And then once we've gone through the form and we have all of these slots filled, And will eventually be 25. I might build like a little version first where there's fewer than 25. We'll take all of the information and send it to a custom action. So a custom action is, here we go, just like pretty much anything. It's arbitrary code that you can run to give your bot information, to look things up, to I guess generate text if you want to generate text. In general, I can't think of a lot of situations where I'd want to generate text wholesale. So my thinking is we'll have the form, we'll get all the information from the form, and then we'll send that information to a custom action. And the custom action will have the code, and there we go. This blog post suggests that the Dialect Quiz uses k-nearest neighbors. So we'll run k-nearest neighbors with the person's responses really quickly and see what dialect area is most like theirs, and then return that information. So that's my general thinking for how to actually make this work, rather than having each question be like a separate interaction and a separate intent. Having everything sort of bundled into a form, I think will be a little bit more efficient on our side, and will also make it easier to do the custom action. Is my idea. So, nope, that's a custom action. Send the data from the form, all the slots, to a custom action that runs the ML code. I was trying to figure out what the word is for the thing that would run. That runs the ML code and returns something, probably the most likely zip code, maybe the top 3 zip codes. I'll probably take zip code and change it into state, which I think is going to be a little bit more accessible to people. I don't know. Information about the best guess about which geographic region shares the most features with the user. I'm trying to think of a word for like the person who takes the quiz, and I was like, quiz taker. No, that's a weird thing to say. And then the thing that we're going to use to do that is copy a form. Boop. All right, so that's the general idea that I have so far. And in addition to these, we'll also need reply. Actually, I think those 2 are the most important, so we'll do them first. And then the third one, I think is a little bit less important, is to take the information, to answer user questions and guide them through using the quiz. So things like you always want to include a sort of response to "Are you a bot?" To let people know that they are interacting with an automated program, so that they have reasonable expectations of what the interactions will be like. Other things, I can imagine people asking, where do you get the information about the words, about dialects from? I can also imagine people asking more about specific words. Specific words / terms / dialect markers. So if people wanted to know more about like pop soda Coke, they might ask about that, and I'd like to have something to, tell them, to point them towards. Other things I think people might ask, I had one. And now it's gone. It's flittered away. Be like, where do different words come from? So that's not super likely, I guess. I don't know. And I think the better thing to do, rather than trying to come up with all the things that people might possibly ask us, is to add ability to handle additional intents as they come up in conversations, actual conversations. So one of the things that's sort of a core premise of Rasa, I would almost say, is that the process of designing a bot using something like Rasa is very different from the way that you would design a bot or a conversational agent or any sort of conversational interface. Differently than the way that it has been done for quite a while, and I think is possibly currently more common, using things like state machines. So in a state machine, you specify each of the states and the condition to transition from one state to another state. So you might think about like a tree, like starts with a greeting, and if their greeting sounds happy, then you do this, and if their greeting sounds angry, then you do this. But what if they never greet you back? Well, you've got to add something to that, and you end up with a very sort of large tree of actions. And I think I mentioned this last week, but Rasa's much more flexible, and particularly as we're sort of moving as a field to more neural approaches that don't necessarily require that the same turns happen in the same way every time, because you can sort of interleave different actions, if that makes sense. But the point is that you don't have to figure out everything that somebody might say in advance. What you can do is take conversations, create a small bot, have people use it, and then look at their interactions and use that to improve your conversational AI over time. So that's the general idea. Coffee. I've got a Berkeley Linguistics Society mug, which I think is my only other linguistics mug. So I think after this I'm out of linguistics mugs. All right, so that's my plan for the moment. And I also put together a little list. Let me see if I can find it. I've got my stuff over here. I put together a list of a couple questions that we might use to kick off having a forum. Again, I'm working on getting the full data set. We'll reconvene when that happens. So some questions for the forum. So these are going to be questions that the user will be asked. So starting with just 3. What do you call the small bug, technically a crustacean, that's often found under logs and rocks and can roll into a little ball? What do you call a sweet carbonated beverage? That's like the soda, pop, Coke distinction. And how do you address a group of 2 or more people, as in are blank ready to go? So like, are y'all, I'm a y'aller, or you, if you're just using the plural form of you, or you guys, or yins, if you're from sort of the Northeast, specifically around the Philadelphia area, which I guess is technically the inland north dialect area. It's been a minute. So what I want to start working on today is, first of all, get everything installed. And I'm going to be optimistic and say we will finish installing things and it will be great. I think I might also already have Rasa installed on this computer. Something for me to check. So, what's today's date? The 29th. 1/29/2020. Install Rasa. Create a form. Nope, not a forum, a form. And I'm probably going to use this somewhere in here. There is, here we go. So there is a tutorial that Yusta did a little over a year ago, actually, on how to use forms. So if you're interested in learning more, this is a good resource. If you search for building contextual assistance with Rasa forms, that should get you the information that you are looking for. And somewhere in here, yeah, is a sample project. That's what I was looking for. Ooh, more coffee. So it's a sample project so that we can fork that and, well, probably clone actually. So we can clone this and use it to strip for parts to begin building our project. So that's my plan. And I'm going to see if this works. I have another scene and it does not have me on it. Okay. What if I do that? Nope, still not there. I guess you don't have to see me. It was working earlier. Well, oh well, okay. So I have made, I've done a very, very small amount of stuff already. And the main thing that I've done is that I've made a folder called Dialect Bot in a folder, Rasa projects, and that is 100% of the stuff that I have done so far. So let's check out the installation guide real quick first. So I'm back. Hello. I was here the whole time. There we go. So let's start by installing Rasa and make sure that we have it locally. There we go. All right. pip3 install Rasa. I've got a terminal open. Let's see if this works. I may already... Jiminy Cricket. I may already have this installed on this computer. Yeah, it's a lot of requirement already satisfied. Okay, so I think I've already installed Rasa on this this computer. So the next step is to... Switching screens does not switch what's on top for me, unfortunately. So I'm having to go through and do that. I believe, and I'm on Windows right now, I believe I have Python 3 installed. So let's double check that. Is there no space? Yeah, there's no space. -- version. Can I just open a session? This has opened the Microsoft Store. Okay. I don't have Python installed, so that's good to know. Are you sure? Fascinating. All right. Let's get, I guess. I'm gonna have to do a bunch of stuff. I am. I could have sworn I had Python installed on this computer. All right. So I'm going to head back to this window. Oh, this is easier. This is easier for me. And then I'm going to install Python 3. And again, very certain that I have it installed, but we'll just do it anyway. That's no big. Install now. Yes. Oh, installing Python 3.8, which came out December 18th. And for those of you who, Ryan says, how is that possible if you have pip? I don't know, dude. It's a good cue. Ryan says, might just be assigned to Python instead of Python 3 since Python 2 is deprecated. That's a good question. Let's figure that out. I definitely install okay, well, we can ignore the Python setup. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, okay, so I was right that I had Python installed on this computer. And for those of you who didn't know, Python 2 has been deprecated as of January 1st, 2020. So if you have not already begun your migration, like the great wildebeests of Africa, now's the time. I don't actually know when they migrate. All right, and I've lost my Chrome window. Doop, 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 doop. There we go. All right, goodbye. Nope, yes. All right, create a virtual environment. And we are on Windows, so all of our slashes are backwards. And I'm just gonna copy and paste, but I am going to need to make sure that this says Python instead of Python 3. This will probably take a little bit. And the reason that you want to have a virtual environment is so that you have a little self-contained project, and as you move it around or put it on Docker or something, you know that you have all of the specific packages and versions that you need, and you are not made sad. All right, back to installation. And then install Rasa open source, which I believe we have already done. So I think from here we should be able to clone this repository. And I don't think you need git setup to clone. All right, and I do not have Git installed on this computer, as it turns out. This is not usually install Git. I'm just Googling in another window. This is not my usual work computer. I am working from a Mac these days. Mac OS. Also, I don't know that I've ever installed Git on Windows. The most official build available for download is on the Git website. This one. So I should, yes. New general public license. Yes, I know it's in the new license. C works for me. Don't care. Let's do Visual Studio Code as the default. Git from Git Bash only, Git from the command line, and also from third-party software. Yes, I would prefer that. Yeah, that's gonna work better for me because I work across multiple OSs. Git will convert while checking out text files. Okay, so this is going to turn it into Windows version when I have it locally, and then back to Unix when I send it back, which is good. I don't have a strong preference here. Yep, that works. All right. It's really weird to be doing Git stuff through a GUI. Although I will say it has been a while since I've used Git much because it was okay. Not something that I did much at Kaggle. All right, once more with feeling. All right. Helpful. Okay. So, what if I restart? PowerShell is the only shell available. New terminal, maybe? Nope, still doesn't work. So, do I need to say sudo? That's not going to help because it's not going to suddenly install it. No. All right. Oh, sudo is not recognized. Interesting. Okay. Okay, I don't need to open anymore, so I'm gonna close one of them. Nope, I can't do that. Well, kill. There we go. All right. Dr. Peter says sudo is definitely not a Windows thing, but how do you run as root? Okay. Ryan says, might not have been added to path. Dr. Peter says, you don't run as root on Windows. Noted. Huh. This has been a learning experience for me already. I use Windows for, like, this, obviously. And, like, recreational computing, but I have not, Decryptor, instead of Dr. Pepper, says /add/old. Ryan says, PowerShell doesn't know sudo. You can run everything as root. Everything is root on Windows. That seems dangerous. Old name. All right. How to get to path Windows. Whoop. All right. Installing Git and Path with GitHub client for Windows, Stack Overflow. And Greg suggests that restart of VS Code may do it. Well, let's try that. Let's see if that works. Greg says, but may have to provide full path to Git or reboot. Welcome to Windows. No. Okay, we don't need sudo. Boop. Hey, thank you, Greg. Oh, and none of you can see what's happening. It worked. I relaunched it and it worked. And Decryptor says that isn't entirely true about running everything as root. It sounds like there's a story there that would be very good and interesting to know, but maybe would pull me a little bit far off track. And my personal preference is to put my code in C:/code. Backslash? One or the other. And Rajiv says, add to environment variables in window on control panel, maybe. Thank you. Thankfully the restart has worked, and I think there's like a 2 to 3 minute lag, so hopefully you will be seeing that worked soon. And we are successfully cloning. Decryptor says, if you right click on an app, you can run things as administrator. Oh yeah, I knew that you could do that. Sorry, I'm trying not to drink into the mic while we wait for this to download. Meanwhile, where's that window? I need a shortcut command for switching between views for me as well as for y'all, and I will figure that out. Decryptor says Stream Deck. Okay, interesting. I will check that out. All right, so the general idea, and I have Wow, my brain's giving me a lot of words that are not the word that I want. My ID. I have my ID in the background so I can see it's almost done. Okay, I'm fine with cookies. So the general idea is that for forms, is that you know what slots you have, so you know what pieces of information you need, but you don't know like what specific types of information. So it's like I don't know. It's like you have the keys but not the values, basically, and you're getting the values. And Rasa uses slots, which is pretty standard terminology in NLP and NLU. And the form action is a handy action so like a custom action can be arbitrary code. A form action is for doing forms that can help you get the amounts of information that you need in an easier way, basically. So you could build something that does what the form action does by hand, but you don't need to because it's been built already. All right, so a little sample conversation here showing using the form action. So they're booking a table. The bot knows, oh, hey, I need some information. I need to know the cuisine, how many people, whether you want to sit outside, and anything else. And then once it has all that information, it double checks and it's like, hey, this is the information that I'm using. And then it will search for a restaurant using some other sort of logic. So forms are ways for collecting a bunch of pieces of information about your specific task. So let's look at what is in this project already. Boop, boop. Switch. There we go, switching. Okay, so there are quite a few things in here, and some of them are just like from the some of them don't matter to us. Like, I don't care about Travis right now. Like, eventually probably I will, but right now I don't. Actually, I think this is all live. Cloning into Rasa is where it is. All right. NLU core. Rasa core utils. Okay, so I'm just getting to grips with everything that's in this this folder right now. So this is just GitHub stuff. We can ignore that. Alt requirements. So this is the requirements needed for training, just training, not training and serving. So we have a specific SciPy version we need. We have a specific scikit-learn version we need. Requirements bear deprecated will be removed. Requirements dev deprecated will be removed. Deprecated will be removed. And then requirements full minimum install requirements is it's what's in requirements.txt, which should be somewhere. Here it is. Okay. So these are the actual requirements, and these, all of these things in alt requirements looks like legacy stuff. So we probably don't actually need to worry about these. So these are all the specific Python packages and versions we'll need. Verges is nothing. Requests, so for sending and receiving requests. Bodo, not sure what that is. Matplotlib for plotting. ATTRs, not entirely sure what that is. JSON pickles JSON maybe? Makes it into binaries. PyMongo for database stuff. Redis, NumPy, SciPy, TensorFlow CPU. Don't know what that is. Setup tools, TensorFlow, TQDOM for sort of like loading bars, Facebook Messenger. Okay, so these are the things that this project needs to work. Rasa SDK is the Rasa Software Developers Kit. I'm pretty sure that's what SDK stands for. Sanic. Don't know what that is. But it's this particular pull request that needs it. And then are these also because of Sanic issues? Interesting. The below can be unpinned when Python socket.io pins more than 3.9.3. Okay, so it needs a specific version of this package. Kafka, SQL Alchemy, async generator, PyDot, Gast, Python date util. Okay, so not the gnarliest requirements. So we can probably pretty much ignore this particular folder. And then binder. Would this be for hosting it as a binder? Service identity. Okay, I don't actually know what this is. I'm guessing we don't have to mess with this. So binder is a Jupyter hosting service, an open source Jupyter hosting service out of Stanford is what I know it as. Okay. So I think this is all of the Rasa examples, dialogue flow, Lewis, Rasa, and wit. I don't really know what wit is. Okay, so I think this is all in the Rasa library. Okay, so here are the docs, some examples. Formbot, aha, this is what we were looking for. So this is all what Rasa needs to run. What we're specifically looking for is Formbot, which is one of the example projects. There's also ConcertBot, Knowledge Base Bot, MoodBot, which is like the very, very beginner example that you probably have first worked with if you played around with Rasa. And if you're sad, it sends you a picture of a baby tiger. So that's all it does. Little minimal example. Restaurant Bot, I think, is for booking restaurants, and I don't know what NLG server is for. Okay, so all of this is the stuff that make Rasa go. So Rasa Core is the dialogue management, I believe, and then Rasa NLU is the NLU, so taking in the raw text and getting out, a computer readable representation, not example. Scripts, publish release notes, sample configurations, and then tests, which again, we don't need to mess with any of that right now. Docker file, if you wanted to host this on Docker, code of conduct, which if you have not read through, I would recommend doing so. And then the virtual environment. All right. I'm Alone Always says, hello, I need help to build a chatbot for a website using Rasa. I guess technically it could be for our website. So what we're working on right now is a dialect quiz. So you'll ask some questions and then get some information back, hopefully. All right, so let's take a little bit of a closer look at the Formbot. So this is what we're going to be replicating. So here is the README, which has information about it. The Formbot example is designed to help you understand how the form action works and how to implement it in practice. Using the code and data files in this directory, you can build a simple restaurant search assistant capable of recommending restaurants based on user preferences. So instead of recommending restaurants, we will say capable of suggesting of, because I don't want to say that we're going to detect people's dialect region, because that's not what we're doing. We are telling them which areas in the United States have the most linguistic features in common with them. And I'll come up with a pithier way to say that. What's inside this example? This example contains some training data, presumably in here, and the main files needed to build an assistant on your local machine. The Formbot consists of the following files: data.nlu.md. Okay, so here we have intents and some examples of utterances that we would map to that intent. So greeting. Intents for requesting a restaurant. So a lot of these are, you can see, just saying that they need to find a restaurant, and some of them have this sort of bracket, what's the round ones called? Bracket parenthesis notation, and I believe this is for entity annotation. So here, Swedish is a type of cuisine, Caribbean is a type of cuisine, and 3 is a number of people. And I think, oh, it's a link. It doesn't go anywhere. And I think that the entities that already exist can be used to fill slots as needed, I believe. But as we continue to read, we'll discover more. And I've lost my README. Can I open this in a new tab? Open to the side. There we go. Oh, that's nice. Okay, yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Okay, so different intents, looking for a restaurant, agreeing that what you have done is the good thing that they wanted, so affirming, some examples of that. Some examples of like, no, not that. Breath, no. Interesting. This might be potentially a transcription from speech, possibly, like, no. Or maybe it's European slang that I'm not familiar with, also possible. And then inform, so telling our bot or our assistant something, and a bunch of examples of that, and then thank you and chit chat. Excuse me. Excuse me. Pardon me. So chit chat is sort of, I don't want to say necessarily off topic, but things that don't map to a different intent. Am I gonna? Excuse me. Pardon me. Amalone always says, how can I run the chatbot locally, and what are the required steps to do so? Probably the quickest way for you to get that information is going to be to go to the Getting Started page in the Rasa docs. And that is rasa.com/docs/getting-started. So that'll walk you through running it locally. All right. Intent stop, so to end the conversation, and then are you a bot, which you want to make sure that you always include. Okay, so those are the training examples for the NLU model, and the NLU model takes takes human-generated language and then produces computer-readable information from that. Data stories contains training stories for the core model. So this is the dialogue selection. It picks what happens next. And there are several stories here. So this first one is sort of the way that you'd like people to use the bot. This is going to be the simplest interaction where you see that they have greeted you and your bot responds, howdy, welcome, or whatever you've assigned to utter greet. And then they request a specific restaurant, at which point you run the form action. So this runs the form. This finishes the form, I believe. I believe you need this every time when you finish the form action. And then if you'll remember from the little example, what this particular assistant does is it takes all of the slots that it has information about, and then it sends them back to you and repeats them back. And then the user says, thanks, so helpful. And the bot says, no worries, you're welcome. Dagum A says, it's okay, Rachel, I'm allergic to work too. Thank you. I think things are just starting to begin to bloom in Seattle, And if this continues to get worse, I'm gonna see an allergist this time. Okay, and then we also have FormBot. Actions.py. So this is where you define your actions. Pylint is not installed. You can change your Python interpreter. Okay, I'll deal with that later. I believe Rasa uses black instead of Pylint. So I'm going to figure out how to install that on Windows too. It'll be a fun time for me, and I can do that off camera. So I want to do. Can I? Hey, that's very nice. That was my expected behavior. So this is the business. Malone always says, we trained the bot and deployed it on Heroku, but it gave wrong responses. How can we correct that error? And I have a lot of doubts about the chatbot development. That's a really good question. So what do you do when you have information and you want to correct your bot? Decryptor says, what do you need to install on Windows? Black. Code formatter, I guess. This one. The uncompromising Python code formatter. So if you're interested in checking that out, and I'll deal with that later. That's on my to-do list. Go away. Nope, go away. Okay, excellent. So to respond to I'm Always Alone's question, the way that you would do that in sort of the Rasa verse, there's definitely a better way to say that, I'm sure, is you would use Rasa X for that. So Rasa X is free. It's not open source, but it is free to use. And the is this gonna have a picture that is helpful? Yeah. Oh, it's so small. That's unreadable. That's completely unreadable. And now it's so big. Okay. Well, this is not a very good viewing experience. But basically, the idea is that, so this is a conversation that you would have with, from your conversation history, and then you'd say like, hey, this one's an error, and then you would flag it as an error, and you would say what you would expect it to do, and then once you'd done that for a while, you would just retrain your assistant from the base. And then that would sort of update how the assistant handles things is how that would work. And that's sort of the, in terms of paths, that would be the happy path for developing a RasaBot. You start with, so just like this, a small example that you build locally, and then you would deploy a Rasa X server, allow people to interact with your assistant, get some conversations, annotate those conversations, note when there's errors, and then fold that data back into your next training loop. So if you're familiar with the term human in the loop, it's an example of that, and you can deploy pretty quickly. And the other thing that's really nice is that if you have other people who care about the project but maybe aren't as comfortable going through and correcting intents by hand, say, in code form, this is a little bit more accessible, I think. So that is my very broad stroke suggestion for I'm Alone Always. Actions. Okay, so here is the business end, I guess, of this particular example. So we have our imports. We can ignore those for now, I think. And then we have this class restaurant form. So this is an example of a form action. And this is the name of the form, so what you want to call it. And then the required slots. So for us, we would have, instead of like cuisine, number of people, outdoor seating, and preferences, we would have, carbonated beverage and small crustacean and what was my third thing that I had? Because I had three little example projects. Nope, not that one. You can go away forever. Well, one of these. Anyway, and whatever the third one was. How do you address a group of 2 or more people? So I'd probably say 2 or more people as the third one. And then we could continue to add slots as we went through and added additional questions. And then once we have the information for each of those pieces of each of those slots, then we can continue on. I'm Alone always says, thanks for the response. You're very welcome. I hope you have better luck with your assistant moving forward. It sounds like you're having a little bit of a rough time, which we've all been there. Little drink. Okay. And then here is a dictionary to map required slots to an extracted entity. So those were the things that we were looking at earlier, with the like colon bracket parenthesis notation. Intent value pairs and a whole message, or a list of them where the first pick will be matched. Okay. So cuisine, how will we know what cuisine is? We will get an example of entity cuisine. Actually, I want that even smaller. That's not during chit chat. So if someone says something like, hey, my favorite food is Mongolian, what about yours? They're not necessarily saying that they want to eat Mongolian today. So we want to make sure that we sort of put those ones aside, and that's what that bit is doing. And then number of people, excuse me. Sorry. And then the number of people that you want to make the reservation for. And this is going to be an entity number of people. So we saw an example of that looking at the training data. And only from intents in form and restaurant request, which is nice because I feel like number of people is something that might be maybe sometimes overused. Or so over detected. So like every time you say a number, you might have a situation where like that's an entity number of people. And by being very clear about which intents it can come from, I think that'll be a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? Robust? Robust, I think is the word I'm looking for. And then we have this intent outdoor seating. So getting entities about seating, getting intent affirm or intent deny. Okay. Oh, so this will, if during the conversation the assistant asks, do you want outdoor seating? And then the person says yes, then they will get that as their slot filling object, I guess. And if they say no, then the slot will be set to false, I'm guessing. Or no. And then preferences, if there's anything else that they want to know. And then feedback. I don't know where this came from. Was it? Yeah, it was definitely referenced up here as well. And then here, used for docs, so probably the documentation. So this will just sort of, well, we'll copy this project and then do our own, so it won't be super important about this. But here's the little database of supported cuisines. And this does not have to be in your actions folder. This could be a, any database that you were accessing, making requests to. And then checking if something is an integer, and then validate cuisine. Okay, so this is checking if a cuisine is part of our little database here. Same number of people, same for outdoor seating, and same for... Oh, no, sorry. And then submitting is what to do after all the required slots have been filled. So I was actually saying that I'd probably want to do this as a custom action. No, I think I still want to do this as a custom action. Because this is saying what's in the dispatcher and the tracker and the domain, which we could then reference later on from different actions. And for now, I don't think I'd want to just run arbitrary code in here. I think I just want to say, hey, once you're done filling out the form, this is what's returned. So probably submit will also look very similar for us. So we're probably going to want to do some validation. We probably don't need any sort of database of supported cuisines, because if people say other, that's fine. And we can just handle that. And then we are going to need to create a slot for each of our questions that we're asking. And that will be what creates the form. But then, of course, we also need to have training data that is similar. And... Oh, I've made that bigger now. Huh. Interesting. I think that's about where we're going to wrap it up for today, I think. So I have a pretty good idea of what I want this to look like now, and I have a pretty good idea of what I need to modify to get it to work. And I think that's what we're going to do next week. And what I might do is I might go through and NLU. I might go through and so looking at the examples of intents here, I might create some examples for a different intents that I might use. All right. I'm Alone says, how can I give the entire website data as the training data to a Rasa chatbot to respond from user queries? Well, you would need your training data to be in this format of, text mapped to an intent, and then stories. So the sort of way that the story changes over time. So it would require a little bit of finagling, I think I'd say. I'm alone. And then Kieran says, can we get this video I came just now? Yes, this should be available to watch pretty much immediately after the stream ends. And if you like, you should be able to scrub back to the beginning, drag the playing bar to the front and watch again from the beginning. Excellent. All right. Thank you for joining, everybody. Thank you for your help with Windows. I imagine it's not going to be the last time I will need that. Especially Deprecator and Greg and Ryan. That was very helpful. Thank you very much. And we will be back on Friday. My plans for the next little bit, I mean, the biggest thing for me is trying to get the data so that I can get the machine learning business underway. Because then it will really work. And we won't just be talking into the void, I guess. So that's my big to do for the rest of today and tomorrow. And then maybe if I have time, come up with some intents for... I might actually have a different intent for each question. I don't know. I'm going to think about it some more. So that's my homework, is to think about it and to try and get the data. And I will see you all on Friday. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you Friday. I just said that. But I will see you then. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.